Test 1 2. Test 1 2. What is up, everyone? Welcome back to the Preston Sports Podcast. Finally recording for the first time in over a week, which is crazy. I haven't gone over a week since I've started this, but I'm back. Camp was awesome. Really crazy. Voice might be a little hoarse. Just letting you guys know. Funny story. So I pre-recorded everything Saturday, and then Sunday morning, Julio finally gets traded to the Titans. I'm pretty sure that's what I said. I wanted him to get traded to. As far as just kind of, looking back at it now, Julio should not have gotten traded to the Titans, but that is what we are going to talk about today. But before we do that, don't forget, like, subscribe, punch the notification bell. That's my thing. Do the things that you have to do. Okay, now, Julio Jones. First of all, Packers should have tried to trade for him. The Rams should have tried to trade for him. Cardinals could have gotten away with trading. A lot of teams could have gotten away with trading for him. He was traded for, I believe, a second and a fourth round pick in the next draft, which is insanely cheap for a guy like Julio Jones. It's absolutely ridiculous how much of a steal it was. But I think the thing that bothers me the most about the trade is the fact that it was to the Titans. I've seen a lot of memes about it, but the Titans... Now, I do think the Titans needed receiver. They lost Jonnu Smith, Corey Davis to free agency. They cut Adam Humphries. So it was A.J. Brown and Josh Reynolds, I think, was their second receiver. So now they have A.J. Brown and Julio Jones, which is definitely one of the better wide receiver duos in the league. Definitely top 5, I would say. Top 3, probably, in all honesty. But it doesn't matter how many points you put up if your defense can't do anything. Their defense is just so atrocious right now. Janorius Jenkins is their number 1 corner. Their number 2 corner was their first-round draft pick, but Caleb Farley, I don't even know what his condition to play is right now, but he's had back injury, but he's had serious back issues, which could be a serious problem for his career. They signed Bud Dupree, but he's coming off an ACL tear, and his best year was in a contract year, which we've seen constantly from the NFL. Players who perform really good in a contract year don't always perform really well. They have Harold Landry, who's a young pass rusher. They have Jeffrey Simmons, who's coming back from injury. They have Kevin Byard, but Kenny Vaccaro is parted ways with the team. There's a lot that they're still missing. But as far as Julio, that is great. Ryan Tannehill, I'll be negative about the trade a little bit later. But you got Julio for a second and a fourth round pick. To get Julio, the Falcons gave up so much capital. They gave up so much to trade up to get Julio. And they only got a second and a fourth for it, especially after not winning that Super Bowl. That sucks. But it's good. It's good for Julio still getting his money. It's good for Tennessee. Only gave up a second and a fourth. You look at Ryan Tannehill, one of the more underrated quarterbacks in the NFL over the past 2 years. A.J. Brown becomes the number 2 guy. That opens him up to a lot more slot stuff. Doesn't have to be the outside guy. Of course, he could always be an outside guy, but that just gives him and the team some slot flexibility. That is good for Derrick Henry, because you can't stack the box. Expect Derrick Henry to probably average more than 4 yards a carry a little bit earlier on in his season. I think it took him 3 or 4 games to get to 4 yards per carry, or maybe 3 or 4 games to get to 5 yards per carry. But you can't stack the box against the Titans anymore, because you can't put Julio and A.J. Brown in man coverage. You just can't do that. Now, granted, their weapons outside of them, it doesn't go deep. You would have liked to see the Titans try to retain Jonnu Smith, or even go after Hunter Henry in free agency, get someone to kind of take the tight end spot. I'm not exactly positive. I can look up who their tight end is. Titans depth chart, but it gives the Titans offense another layer of depth to it. So like I said, it's Tannehill, Derrick Henry, Julio, AJ, Josh Reynolds, Dez Fitzpatrick, Cameron Batson. So I thought it was Anthony Ferguson, and I was right about it. It's Anthony Ferguson, Jeff Swam. Oh, and the offensive line is still pretty good. Taylor Lewan is coming back from injury. You have Roger Saffold. You have Ben Jones, Nate Davis, Dylan Radunas, something like that. Your defensive line is still... Okay, now I'm going to be negative about the trade. Titans. Good for you. You traded for Julio Jones. Now your third receiver is still Josh Reynolds. Your tight end is still Anthony Ferguson. Your offensive line is good. Not great, but it is definitely good enough to be serviceable. But you can put up as many points as you want, but this defense isn't going to stop anyone. It's a 3-4. You're looking at Jeffrey Simmons, Taylor Tart, and is that Denico Autry, sorry, as your defensive line. Your pass rushers are Harold Landry and Bud Dupree. Now your inside linebackers I think are really good. You have Jayon Brown and Rashaan Evans, two of the better interior linebackers. But then when you go to the corners, Jack Rabbit, Caleb Farley, Elijah Molden, Christian Fulton, Quentin Meeks. You have Breon Borders, Greg Maben, and Chris Jackson. No one incredible. And of course, Caleb Farley, he could just end up being completely healthy, and we were worried about injuries for nothing. But I don't think that is what will happen. I think that Caleb Farley won't start for a while. And so you're looking at someone like Elijah Molden or Christian Fulton starting. Yes, you still have Kevin Byard, who's one of the better safeties in the league, but then you have Amani Hooker. You have Amani Hooker, who, let's check Amani Hooker's stats if I can. Because, honestly, don't know that, in all honesty, I don't know that much about Amani Hooker. Normally that isn't good. Let's see, Amani Hooker, 4th round pick in 2019. In his 2020 season, he racked up 51 total tackles, 35 of those being solo tackles, 0 sacks, 0 forced fumbles, he had 4 interceptions. Oh my goodness. Amani Hooker is probably the best safety in the league now that I think about it. Not really, but wow, that's actually really cool. His 2020 season, 4 interceptions, only for 11 yards. But that means those were jump balls at least. 8 passes defended. Wow. He had a safety too. I take it back, Amani Hooker is a pretty decent safety. Now granted, he had been playing in a backup role. So we'll see how that goes as far as him starting full time. I'm not exactly positive how that will work. But the Titans are not a threat this year. And that's crazy. You think, Derrick Henry, blah, blah, blah. They have Julio Jones and A.J. Brown, all this stuff. But when you play the Titans, yes, you are worried. But put them up against the Ravens, because they have a pretty nice rivalry. You can put Marcus Peters on A.J. Brown and Marlon Humphrey on Julio Jones. And you're not comfortable because, they're A.J. Brown and Julio Jones, they're going to make plays. But your defense is good enough when healthy. You can stuff the run. The Ravens' offensive line the Titans' offensive line is nothing spectacular. You can stop the Titans from running. Granted, you would want to play man, but Julio is not the explosive, high-speed player he once was. Now he's still an incredible wide receiver, but he's not the athletic freak that he once was. He still has the body of the athletic freak, but the speed and the explosiveness have kind of deteriorated with his age. So, but put him up against the Ravens. Can the Ravens stop Lamar Jackson from running the ball? Can they stop J.K. Dobbins from running the ball? Can they pressure Lamar? Can they make Lamar uncomfortable in the pocket? Can they hold contain to keep Lamar in the pocket? Do they have the gap responsibility to stop from inside runs or read options? Do they have the pass coverage ability to stop even Sammy Watkins or Rashad Bateman? Do they have the speed to keep up with Marquise Brown? Do they have... Now, I'm not worried about linebackers covering Mark Andrews, but say you put Mark Andrews out wide. Put Marquise Brown in the slot. Or, I hate to do it, but put the Titans up against the Browns. You know, you have Myles Garrett and Jadeveon Clowney, Malik Jackson, and Andrew Billings on that interior or on that defensive line. Now, granted, you would have Denzel Ward on Julio, probably Greg Newsome on AJ, and so your secondary, you know, your defense has heavily improved from last year if you're Cleveland, but you should be able to hold. You know, it's not going to be absolutely locked down, and that's the thing. Your defense doesn't need to be absolutely locked down when you play the Titans. You just need to make sure that their defense isn't locked down. If you can beat the Titans defense, you can beat the Titans. If you can stop the Titans once, you can beat the Titans. You know? Because the Titans just need to make some defensive move. Like, you know, Stephon Gilmore. Today's the first day of mandatory minicamp for a lot of teams. Stephon Gilmore didn't show up. He's holding out. If I'm the Titans, you have to trade for Stephon Gilmore. Now there's other teams that should be trying to trade for Stephon Gilmore. But if you're the Titans, that is something you need to do. If you have to, you know, you don't really want to give up your first round because that means you're pickless till the third. But give up a future first. You got to give up something. You have to try in some way to get Stephon Gilmore. Just add something to that defense where you can like stop someone in some way, shape, or form. Because right now you don't have that ability. Yes, Jeffrey Simmons is really good. Well, he's coming off an injury, so we'll see. You have Bud Dupree, who showed promise last year. You have Harold Landry, who's a young playmaker. And then you have Caleb Farley, who, you know, was the number one corner prospect coming out of the draft until all the injury stuff came out, and then that's when he started falling. It's just, I don't know. I think there are a lot of teams that could have been in a better... Like, if the Colts... Can you imagine if the Colts traded for Julio Jones? Can you imagine if the Patriots traded for Julio Jones? Who else could have traded? There's a lot of teams that could have traded for Julio Jones. The Seahawks, any of the NFC West teams. Put Julio Jones on the Cardinals. You're looking at, DeAndre Hopkins, AJ Green, and Julio Jones, and Christian Kirk, and Rondale Moore. That's probably the best receiver room in the league if that happens. Or you put him in Seattle. Julio, DK, and Tyler Lockett. Bro, can you imagine Julio and DK at those outside wide receiver positions and Tyler Lockett in the slot? That's the best offense in the NFL. Yeah. Now, I'm talking about how the Titans, how they did good getting Julio for little, how they, but I think the Falcons made a good move. First of all, they traded him out of the NFC. He's nowhere in the NFC right now. But they traded him to a team where, say they came across the Titans in the Super Bowl, you were not that worried about the Titans. Because, at least not right now. Now say they make a couple big defensive additions and they can create a somewhat competent defense. Or maybe say Mike Vrabel just puts on the pads and starts playing linebacker. They just need something on this defense to click where these players who aren't necessarily great, they just become great. Whether that's coaching, scheming, putting players in positions where they can succeed. you can make something out of this defense. But unless they make something out of this defense, they're not going to repeat. Now, granted, the division is not great. The Texans are a non-threat in the division. The Jags, I mean, sure, the Jags with Trevor Lawrence are a threat, but you really think they're going to win the division? No, they're a threat to split with, maybe. But so it is the Titans and the Colts. And say Carson Wentz doesn't go back to MVP form, then, the Titans on the back of Derrick Henry and Ryan Tannehill and Julio and AJ will probably win the division. But do you think they'll win a playoff game? No. Do you say they luck into a playoff win? You think they're going to win 2 playoff games? No. You think they're going to go to the AFC? No. You think they're going to go to the Super Bowl? No. They don't have the defense to do it. We've all heard the old saying, defense wins championships, And no matter how explosive your offense is, if there's a defense that can get one stop, then your offense, you can score every drive and get stopped once. But if your defense allows scores every drive and you can't stop them once, then you lose that game. So I think that the Titans, good for them that they traded for Julio, but I still think that there's a long way for them to go before they're ready for a Super Bowl. And I don't know if that's possible while Julio's still on the team, Julio's getting up there in age. You're hopeful that the Titans are hopeful that they have everyone they think they need to succeed, and I'm just not sure that's the way it is. But that's just my opinion. Comment down below what you think. If you're a Titans fan, I'm sorry, but I just don't think the Titans are it this year. Don't forget to like, subscribe, punch the bell, do all the things. I will talk to you guys, I guess, tomorrow. Yeah, sorry there were some technology difficulties yesterday. So hopefully this is able to go up. If not, I'm very sorry. But I'll be back tomorrow, and then I'll be back on Friday for a Fix 'em Up Friday. Guys, have a good night. Peace out.